Hi everyone, welcome again to the 10-minute RGM series by Visual Fabric. I'm Danielle van der Ende, I'm Product Marketing Director here. And today I'm joined by Ewa Wiśniewska. Well, very welcome and tell me a little bit about yourself.
My name is Ewa. I'm a Senior Revenue Growth Manager working at FoodWell, which is a Polish company. My previous experience I gained in either Insights or also Revenue Growth Management team in Mars, PepsiCo, British American Tobacco, and most recently I spent 3 years in Kenvue.
Well, sounds like you can talk a lot of RGM to us and share a lot of different perspectives. So this is going to be really interesting. So over the next 12 months, which RGM trends do you think will matter most for your business? And where will you focus your effort and your team's efforts?
Right. So in my opinion, RGM needs to focus on being fast, flexible, and precise. What it means is that we cannot take this approach that one size fits all because it doesn't work. So we need to look closer on our go-to markets. We need to understand our clients and their needs and what portfolio we want to play in each channel. And we need to have a good understanding of our end consumer because the same person can go to two different retailers with completely two different shopping mission. And if we don't build it into our strategy, if we don't have this framework, how we want to operate, what will happen is that actually our retailers will make those business decisions for us because they will present us with some options or opportunities. And if we don't have a framework or guideline to help us navigate those decisions, we will just make them randomly as we go, and we will not build long-term, approach to our own business. And if we're not precise with what's the strategy in terms of our go-to markets, who gets the product first, what would be the trade condition, how it will build to our profitability, then what may happen is that we end up with a product that did not land well on the shelf, did not rotate, and we are stuck with a lot of wasted resources, a lot of stock, and instead of building our profitability, we are losing money.
What RGM capability has become essential for your team and probably something that you weren't even prioritizing 2 to 3 years ago?
I think that it's to switching this perspective from looking internally on selling data to sellout data. And don't get me wrong here. I know that sellout, it's written in RGM definition from the very beginning of it. So I'm not saying that it was never in focus or it wasn't important. But what I'm saying is that RGM teams sometimes tend to be rather small, and yet we're involved in so many projects across entire organization. Sometimes we don't have enough time or energy or just in general resources to focus on sellout. And I believe that RGM really starts with sellout because whatever we do internally, that should reflect what's happening on the market and the other way around. And I think that sometimes it has been over past years overlooked, not because we don't want to, it's just really because we don't always have those resources to focus on that.
I think you're touching here on a universal truth in CPG. Having the sheer volume of data available, having your top priority, which is in the end to indeed have that P&L building strategy, and then knowing that there's this outside world that you actually want to address, but not having the time to always get into the data. So what would be your one tip for other people in the market struggling with this to get those sellout data more involved?
I think what's really helpful is to build dashboards that truly answers business question. It happened to me a lot that we've been looking at the data. I don't know, let's say price versus rotation, and you look at that, and there comes this question. So what do I do with that? I feel that often we look at the data, and what we have is like, oh, that's interesting. Now I know, and that's it. And it cannot be that's it. So we need to have that business question in mind, and we need to start with that. So if you build your dashboards starting with what business questions going to answer. Then by simply reviewing that, you have this quick knowledge of what's happening. And it's very helpful because we spend a lot of time working with data, and then it's important to minimize the time where we are working on the data and spend maximum time on actually reading the insight.
You touched a good topic here. So business questions and how you can answer that with RGM data. Of course, the business usually also consists of multiple teams. We know always sales is involved, finance, supply chain, often marketing. Where do you see RGM help to solve misalignments between those different teams?
I think by definition, RGM sorts of sits in the middle, and we have to work with all of those different teams to kind of put together our strategy and our plan. To me personally, the way I see RGM, this is to be profitable, but in a good way, meaning that if we have our marketing team, so they focus their efforts on making sure that you have built your brand awareness, you have consistency in your communication, and then you have on the opposite, you have sales that usually they are driven by volume goals, and then RGM would be sort of in the middle. So we want to be profitable, which is a very simple equation of building volume and proper pricing. But then you also want to keep this consistency, because you know that in order to build your volume long term, you need to have base of clients that they know your brand, they like it, they understand it. If they go abroad, they will recognize it on the shelf. So I think that with RGM being in the middle, we sort of connect those dots.
What if I ask you to make one bold prediction about RGM 5 years from now? What would it be and why?
I would say leaning towards the AI solution or even TPO solution that we already have in place. So it's something that's kind of already happening right now. I think we're all working with AI, but the thing with all maturity models that it always starts with those with those ad hoc activities that we had, and moving towards having those solutions that are on total organization level. So I believe many companies, or maybe most companies, they're still in the beginning of that, because when you think about using AI as a, for personal reasons, it's very easy. But when you think about implementing that in your organization, you can just slap it like a band-aid and expect it to work. You truly need to implement it, and it's long, exhausting, time-consuming, and very difficult process. And it starts with data lakes, because you need to have one source of truth. The thing is that many companies are just not ready yet to go through it because they don't have built foundation for it. But I think when we're talking about 5-year perspective, this is absolutely where we're going, because we need to switch our focus from working operationally on the data to reading insights.
And AI is the big topic today. There's, of course, a lot of automation in the market. But what I like about what you're telling me, you're really looking into how can AI help me make smarter decisions? How can it help me to speed up those decisions? And indeed, there's a good foundation that you need for that, which is your uniform data lake. What we very often see is that if you currently have a solution in place with that data lake structure already for you, then setting up the AI is not the biggest thing. You need to have that change management indeed, and trying to get your organization to learn where to trust, where not to trust, and how to build.
I think you touched upon a very important thing, because I was looking right now strictly from this technical point of view, because I can see that many companies are not ready, meaning that they don't have a certain foundation built. But the mindset, the change management, because with AI, what happens is that right now, in many companies, we're looking at the big picture and we making decision looking at big picture. But when you're talking about AI, when you're talking about CPOs, you're going really down into SKU level. So your precision that we talk about, it's obviously on much higher level, but your ways of working are completely different now. It's not enough to look at your total channel, not enough to look total brand. Suddenly you need to understand your business on SKU level. And when you're just starting, you don't have that history. It can be a lot of workload at first. It can be a lot of resistance. And a lot of setbacks because of that, because you're not going to run it perfectly the first time you do it.
Last main question for you. What's the one lesson that you learned early in your career that still shapes your RGM approach today?
It is a little bit negative, but something that I noticed really early on is that we have this tendency of building unrealistic stretch targets. We tend to be a little bit ambitious or too optimistic. And it's good to some extent, but if you cross a certain line, what happens is that your strategy is no longer a tool for you to reach those targets. Because if you have even the best strategy in the world, you have your portfolio, trade condition, pricing, promo, everything is set, but your targets are way too hard. So even if you follow that strategy, you're not close to reach your goal. And the thing that happens next is that people start to make a bit, let's say, desperate business decisions. So for instance, you start over promoting something and because you want it very short term, you need peak of volume right now. So short term, you will maybe reach that target, maybe not, depending how unrealistic it is. But long term or even medium term, what happens is that your brand value goes down, your strategy is no longer in place, even though you spent months on making sure that it will run smoothly, but you're not following it. And now your trade conditions are also not working for you because you set a new level of financial support. So doesn't matter what you have in contract, but if in practice you go much deeper, you build expectation that are very difficult to bounce back from. How I use it in my everyday work is that I always try to really be very precise that when I'm making a recommendation, what am I basing it on? What are the data sets? What do I see in the market? So in my area, to try to make it as much realistic as possible, to kind of avoid this trap of those stretch targets.
That's a very good way to close off the conversation and to ask you, who would you like to see in our next episode?
I think that this AI topic that we discussed earlier, this would be so interesting to hear from someone who is maybe during this journey of implementing AI tools in their company, the way that it's truly part of the organizational system.
Gonna look for someone. We might have a few in mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you.